Welcome, everyone. You were listening to, perhaps watching, Hot Sauce Sports. Unlike last week, this week I figured out the technology, and I'm here to do my own job, which is to introduce the show. Terry, the rest is up to you. Terry, everyone. He's in the house, literally his own house, because we still can't be together.
Give me a score on 10 of how I did the intro last week.
You did well, actually, especially it's because it's awkward if you're not sure if I'm gonna come back and when I'm gonna come back. So
and your face is still frozen there.
Yeah, because you don't know if I'm talking and you just can't hear it, or if I'm if I literally left the room or if I dropped out. What happened is it froze literally on my end. So I thought I can restart it and get back in time for the beginning of the show, but unfortunately I was late by half a minute or so. So either way. Late. You guys filled in wonderfully. Luckily, Duke the Graphite was on the call as well.
It would have been just me talking about porn.
You weren't talking to yourself.
I wasn't talking to myself, no. But talking to Duke, sometimes I feel like I'm talking to myself.
Oh, yeah. He has this ability to, be present, but only his body is there. And his mind is just in space.
I experienced that when we played golf with him this year.
Oh yeah, you were gonna murder him. That was a fun day.
One of the worst experiences of my life. I'm not gonna He was all over the place, all over He would just go and the first ball he would see, he would think it was his ball. It was never his ball. And not only that, he would be the fourth one to tee off, and then he would just be. And then when it's his turn, he'd be like, "Okay, I'm gonna go get my clubs." No, you should have got your clubs while everybody else was teeing off. We have people behind us. You know what I mean?
I think if we gotta get a cameraman out next time just to film and then cut up all the golf etiquette that he doesn't observe.
Just record him for the entire round. Glorious.
Yeah, I'll bring battery packs in my phone, strap my phone to my chest. Dude, don't worry about this. It's just a new jacket.
We'll figure it out. Yeah, don't worry about it.
Eagle at Master Control. He's the guy who's gonna have to figure out how I'm gonna film him. Eagle, how's it going today?
Very well. I would know exactly how to film me because I have all the cameras.
It's true. So we got a pretty fun show today. We have John Liu from TSN Montreal. I'm looking forward to talking to him. That was one of the few guys who in our bloggers chat, we said, "Hey, we're gonna have John Liu on this week." Everyone lit up. Everyone was super excited to have him on. So it's cool. It's cool to see everyone being excited about the stuff that we're doing.
If you
live
in
our own
Montreal,
team, and I'm sure that translates.
If you live in Montreal and you're not a John Liu fan, then I don't know what the fuck.
I'm sure Réjean Tremblay doesn't like him that much.
Yeah, whatever, fuck him. But that's the thing is everybody knows John Liu as the best dressed guy. You know what I mean? He's always fucking dressed to the nines. He's unbelievable. His delivery is unbelievable, and I have a favor to ask him at the end of the interview. One favor.
He's the P's of TSN, then, the best dressed guy in the room.
I mean,
when you Hot Sports, the standard is very low.
So best dressed has to be also appropriate to the job that you're doing. You literally wear a tie and collar to a show where we're talking about dicks and porn most of the time.
Well, but the thing is, I've always, when I see a penis, I always imagine it with a bow tie. It makes it
like a tuxedo, like a penis with a tuxedo on it. I can see that, yeah.
Just because, especially if it's another dude's penis, it makes it less threatening if he's wearing a bow tie.
It's almost like he's gifting it to you.
Yeah. It's that's an award? Thank you.
It's like when on the Hormone Monster on Big Mouth when he dresses up, he has his little dicks, his little creatures that fly out of his nose, and he uses them. They're all a bunch of little hairy dicks, and sometimes they wear bow ties and stuff. It's super cute.
It's true. It's hilarious. I do like that. I love in that show the Hormone Monster who travels with his travel dicks. He has 3 dicks that he takes out of a suitcase or briefcase, as it were. And there's companions. There's friends. There is confidants. Usual as it is. So we have a fun show ahead. We offer a whole bunch of stuff. As if you don't know, you know now. We have our show. We have Healthy Scratch. We have your podcast, Terry, Weekly Sauce. Do you guys know who's on this week?
We were supposed to talk about some fights with Drew from Drew Experience Pod, but he couldn't make it, so we got a replacement. We got Lambros and oh man, I'm forgetting his name. Oh no, we just got Lambros and Josh. We got them from Drive for 25 podcast. They talk about their Habs podcast and their diehard Habs. We went on their show a few months ago at the beginning of the season, and And now they're coming on ours tonight, so it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be sick. We're gonna talk Suzuki and how big his penis is.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's always the conversation to have. So yeah, we have a litany with the stuff. If you like what we do, remember to like and subscribe. Watch it if you prefer. Listen if you can't stand seeing us. And if you can't stand seeing or hear us, you can either subscribe or just send us an envelope of cash. We prefer an envelope of cash.
Yeah.
If we can somehow turn this into a Ponzi scheme, I would prefer that than running a podcast network.
You can leave it at the Starbucks on Cremazy since I go there every morning.
There we go. Now you know if you want to stalk Terry Tam, you know where to find him.
The other day, I'm waiting in the fucking drive-thru. I'm waiting for like 10 minutes. I'm like, there's cars in front of me. And then all of a sudden, the car in front of me just takes off, like as if there was no cars in front of him. So I turn the corner, and they just decided to close the restaurant and not tell anybody. The Starbucks, they just closed it. They just closed it. They said, fuck it. There's a sign on the window that says, sorry, temporarily unavailable. Well,
it was like on a piece of paper cars. With like written, not even in marker, but like in pen.
Yeah, you have like 7 cars back there, man. Like, fucking let us know. Somebody come outside, tell us, listen, we're going to close. You guys can leave. It's ridiculous, man. So they got my name wrong.
If I need to find like a silver lining about not going to the podcast, it wouldn't be that once in a while Terry brings coffee, because that's always super appreciated. Yeah. The one silver lining is we don't need to find parking in winter in that hellhole. Do you remember the amount of times you have to be circling around and around and around looking for where you can park, because half the roads are blocked for snow removal?
Yeah, when the snow removal, if it's snow, like tonight, if there's the snow removal on that fucking street, it's the worst street in the history of the world. There's no street that has ever been worse than that street in the history of the world.
I'm in walking distance, and I agree with you.
There you go.
Oh, Eagle, when we're at the studio, I also walk to the studio, and
just to avoid parking.
Yeah, I'd rather walk an hour than park.
How do you walk there, though? It takes forever.
It takes an hour.
That's how bad the parking is to him. He'd rather walk.
But you don't walk in the winter.
I live in a really small street. There's literally seven houses, but for some reason we're the first to get cleaned. Like you can see, we had a snowstorm yesterday, right? Like schools were closed and stuff. You can now see the pavement on my street. That's how quickly the snow gets removed from my street, which is nonsense to me because we're not a busy street at all.
What nonsense is we closed the schools yesterday for 10 centimeters of snow, and it's as if nobody's ever fucking seen snow before.
It's so I actually know why that happens, by the way. It's not even the school board's decision per se. It's from Transport Quebec. If the buses can't leave the station easily at the time that they need to leave at like 6:30 in the morning or whenever it is, then they basically say schools can't open because we can't go pick up the kids, and they decide that based on the availability of buses and if they need to remove buses from the street so that they can remove snow more quickly throughout the city. So it's actually a transport. And I think this year it's just because most classes are like online anyway. So if there's going to be any delays, why even do it? Just shut down schools and clean the snow kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But I bring that up because Texas is having some trouble dealing with winter. Terry, 130 car pileup in Texas. I don't believe, Eagle can correct me if I'm wrong, at the time that I checked, there was no confirmed deaths, but that may have changed after that.
I will check, but I don't think there was.
Oh, so at least there's not that.
No, there's 6 dead. 6 dead.
Six deaths.
Fuck. That bad?
So that's, yeah. Well, again, 130 car pileup is insane. I've never seen anything close.
130. I don't think we haven't had that here, but people know how to drive here in the winter. They're used to it, right? There was a snowstorm in San Bernardino last year. This year, sorry. Well, 25 centimeters in California and Southern California. It's fucking nuts.
It's been insane. I saw a U.S. map with like, all like the blue that represents like which parts are cold and snowing. And then like superimposed was a picture that's with like a Mortal Kombat character that said Sub-Zero wins.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was awful. That's the picture. For those not seeing it, it's the picture of the 130 car pileup.
Holy fuck. But it's not even snowing there.
I mean, no, it's because people don't know how to drive in a bit of slipperiness, right? Because you barely get rain, and when you do, it's not that bad. So when the roads start becoming just a little bit icy, we know this, your brake distance is significant. We have winter tires. We have salt on the road. People there are like, I'm just going to brake like I usually do, right up the guy's ass. And it doesn't work.
And then
So
a truck falls over and squishes you.
The first year we gone back to Georgia, the family that we hang around with told us, hey, yeah, it's good that you guys didn't come last year. Last year there was like, 4 inches of snow. It was snowmageddon. People literally abandoned their cars on the highway.
Yeah, I remember that.
And the snow and highway weren't cleared for days because they had one plow. They needed to borrow plows from other states in Atlanta.
Makes no fucking sense. Makes no fucking sense. We had it here a couple years ago where there was like a huge thing where people abandoned their cars on the highway, but like that was because it was like 80 centimeters of snow.
Yeah. The thing is, maybe at this point, instead of denying that weather's changing, invest in plows. Don't mean to be a dick, but
Where's a plow company in Texas I can invest in?
Actually, you know what? We gotta set up Mr. Plow down in the south there. Let's do it.
Mr. Plow, that's my name. My name again is Mr. Plow.
And without any other dalliance, it's time for the news. Terry is the news.
Is it?
It is, absolutely. It's time for it. Blake Griffin, I actually have an article about this this week, so if you want to check it out, it's at www.hotsaucesports.ca. Blake Griffin is being benched while the team and he can come to a conclusion to the rest of his career. He's on the books for 2 more years as a max salary player. The complication, and what the article boils down to is trading is going to be difficult because teams will want them to include a first-round pick to give them the salary relief. So, like, if you want to take Blake Griffin and that salary, you're gonna have to give us like a first-round pick. But Detroit's pretty terrible, so that first-round pick's super valuable. It's actually a lottery pick, so they're not going to want to do that. So in the end, I think what's going to happen is he's going to get bought out. And sort of the nice side of this, we talked about silver linings in the introduction. The silver lining to this situation is he's going to at least choose his fate because he signed an extension and then 7 weeks later was traded from the Clippers to Detroit, where he had no interest in playing in the first place.
So one of the best lines of your article was when you're like, it's National Side Piece Day. And
it actually was.
Yeah, it's fitting because Blake, the Pistons basically told Blake that he wasn't the one. Like it was a fucking awesome line. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm not surprised. I mean, I think we're getting to a point now where a lot of these guys are on like these super max deals and they're not performing to how they should be performing. And I mean, there's all this thing of like, oh, is he going to go back to the Clippers? Yada, yada. Steve Ballmer, he didn't shake Steve Ballmer's hand 3 years ago. So like,
he's not going back to the Clippers. That was a very personal situation.
Yeah, 100%. He saw him too. He saw that. He kind of gave him the whole like, he lifted his head. He saw him a little bit. But the thing with Blake Griffin to me is like, is he performing at that level? It's going to be hard for them to get the value that they want for him because he just costs way too much money. What team is going to pay that much money? But they're going to have to do
a team that would take a first-round pick from the Pistons as well. But like I said, that's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen, yeah.
Yeah, you know what he should do? He should go back to driving Ubers because he was good at that.
He's also a fantastic stand-up comedian.
I wouldn't say fantastic, though. I saw him live.
I mean, by basketball standards.
By basketball standards, he's just a naturally funny guy. But as a comedian, I'm not a huge fan. But he is a naturally funny human being. Like, he understands, like, humor. He knows. Yeah, he's self-aware. He gets things. Like, he gets it. Like, he's on it. Like, he'd be very good, like, on, like, he did, like, the roasts and things like that. He's good at that stuff. But when it comes to, like, pure stand-up comedy, I don't know. I didn't like him too much.
I can already see his next material. He's like, so here's what I did with my life. I got a super max deal, and then I play like shit.
Yeah, 100%. It should be one of his bits. It's like, listen, the best thing to do is get drafted in the first round. Well, first overall. First overall? Was he a first overall pick?
He was first overall pick, yeah. It's known as the Blake Griffin draft.
Get drafted as first overall. Be good for like 3 years, then mediocre. And then you start sucking a little bit too much where you get a super max deal for a shitty team, make that team even worse, and then get traded to a team that's a contender, win a championship That's the recipe of a journeyman in the NBA.
So I'm going to give you two stats that sound like they happened 1,000 years ago. The first one is the last season, Blake Griffin put up 24.5 points per game.
Last season.
It was not last season. It was because he was injured most of last season. It was a 2019 season.
Okay, so
that season, in December of that season, that was the last time Blake Griffin has dunked a basketball.
Okay.
So Blake Griffin, the dude who the worry about his drafting was that he could only dunk. He hasn't dunked in 2 years.
And he still scores 24.5 points.
Well, he was. Now it's down to 12.5, and the shooting is down. And he was shooting 36% from three for a guy who was not a natural shooter. That's excellent.
I thought he's been washed up for a while. Like, I'm a Blake Griffin guy. Like, I'm not hating on him, but I thought he was a little washed up. But like, you're telling me 24.5 points 2 years ago. That's still big money.
That's the thing. That's like he's the injuries have taken a toll. Like, you just throw the numbers away. When you're watching him play, he's not explosive. He looks worn down. It's hard to see. But again, the fact that this guy it's like if I told you the last time Zion dunked was 2 years ago, you think I was crazy, right? Like, that's what Blake Griffin was when he got to the league. Maybe not quite as mobile as not the ability to move that Zion had, but just explosiveness to the net. Like, that's the closest comp we had to Zion was Blake Griffin in his rookie year.
Yeah, I think it's the best comp we have. It's a good point because I see that too. Like, I see kind of the whole thing with just the way he's been progressed. Exactly like Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin coming out of Oklahoma was unreal, man. I was a huge fan coming.
And Zion also missed a bunch of his first season because of an injury, like Blake Griffin did, because that style of play is really hard on the body. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's tough to see for Blake. Hopefully he finds a home soon. Hopefully he finds a resolution soon. He's still good enough to help a team, and there's enough teams out there that are great at rehabbing talent. So we hope to see that soon. There's another situation occurring with a former teammate, Andre Drummond, also being benched as the Cavs look for a solution for his future. And Draymond Green actually had a response to players being handled this way, and here it is.
Before the game, sit on the sideline, then go to the bat, and then come out in street clothes because a team is going to trade him is bullshit. Because when James Harden asked for a trade and essentially dogged it, I don't think there was no surprise or there's no one's going to fight back that James was dogging it his last days in Houston. But he was castrated for wanting to go to a different team, and everybody destroyed that man. And yet a team can come out and say, oh, we want to trade a guy, and then that guy is to go sit. And if he doesn't stay professional, then he's a cancer, and he's not good in someone's locker room, and he's the issue. And we've seen situations of Harrison Barnes getting pulled off the bench. DeMarcus Cousins finding out that he's traded in an interview after the All-Star game. And we continue to let this happen. But I got fined for stating my opinion of what I thought should happen with another player. But teams can come out and continue to say, oh, we're trading guys, we're not playing you. And yet we're to stay professional. At some point, as players, we need to be treated with the same respect and have the same rights that the team can have. Because as a player, you're the worst person in the world when you want a different situation. But a team can say they're trading you, and that man is to stay in shape. He is to stay professional. And if not, his career is on the line. At some point, this league has to protect the players from embarrassment like that. We talk all of this stuff about you can't do this. You can't say that publicly. If you say that publicly, you're fine. Anthony Davis got fined, I think, $100,000 or something like that for demanding a trade publicly. But you can say Andre Drummond's getting traded publicly, and we're looking to trade him publicly, and he's to stay professional and just deal with it. But then when Kyrie Irving say, oh, my mental health is off, everybody go crazy about that too. Do you not think that affects someone mentally? As much as we put into this game to be great.
Yeah.
And there we go.
He's pretty spot on for a guy I usually disagree with. I think he's pretty spot on. The thing is that with we take it for granted. These players are assets, right? I mean, It's a business first. It's always been a business first. Regardless of if it's a game, it's a fucking business. There's an owner. The owner owns the assets, right? So he has the right to wheel and deal them as much as he wants. Now, that's not what Draymond Green is complaining about. What Draymond Green is saying is that there's a double standard here. It's like they can go out and say we're shopping this guy, and this guy, but as soon as that player says I want to get traded, he's ostracized, and he's like, you use the word castrated. And you know what?
I think you tried to say chastised, by the way.
Yeah. And what did I say? I said chastised.
No, I think Draymond Green wants to say chastised, but said castrated. And then my mind went to, it was like, okay, James Harden, we'll trade you, but we'll take your balls.
We're also gonna take your dick, and that's pretty much it. So no, but I was a guy who hated on Harden, not necessarily for asking for the trade. I hated on Harden for wanting to go specifically to Brooklyn. That was my hate. But I listen. You're right. You're a fucking human being. If you don't want to live in that city, if I decided today I don't want to live in Montreal anymore, then I'm going to fucking San Diego, wherever the fuck I want to go. Who's gonna tell me otherwise? Why should James Harden not be able to say the same thing? Why is Andre Drummond? Why does he have to be scared for his life, for his job, and the rest of his career? Because if he doesn't act professionally, then they're gonna get a lesser value for him or whatever it is. I think it's ridiculous. I agree with Draymond Green for the most part. I think that these players they're used up until they're not needed anymore, and when they're not needed, they're dished off like a cum rag.
I mean, just to add to that and everything, there's obviously a lot of things that happen behind the scenes, but, publicly coming out saying you want to be moved or you want to be traded is a negotiating tactic by your agent, right? Like if the organization isn't taking your demand seriously, well, then you leak it to the press, and then the press goes off with it, and then suddenly everyone wants you, right? Or what's going on? So if your value drops, well, too bad. You gave the team an opportunity. They didn't do anything with it, and so now you're taking it into your own hands.
Yeah, well, Harden's case, they offered him $50 million, but he just didn't want to be there.
That's also a fair thing too, right? You're like, I don't want to play here anymore. Move me.
Yeah. So, like, there's a couple things. One, Draymond Green's a bad messenger, right? Like, we all know the dude's a bit of an asshole, and he would probably say it as well. But he is actually absolutely right, to your point. And the thing with the James Harden thing, yeah, he was offered $50 million. But, like, isn't that what fans want? Guys to not play for the paycheck, guys who want to compete and win championships. Like, that's what you want in your athletes. But then when they're telling you, listen, the team's not doing it for us, the team is not going out and making the team better around me, then they get apparently castrated. I would say more just publicly chastised. But the other thing is that, like, we look at these situations, and it's the weirdest thing in the world to me that people who are largely employees side with ownership who are employers. But if they were themselves in that position, they would always take the side of the employees, because that more closely represents their reality. It's just really strange that they're like, you know what? You know who's got it right? Not the spoiled millionaires, those poor billionaires. They're the ones we got to look after.
Poor guys.
It's just really strange. And not only is that the strangest thing, is that we look at these three guys specifically, Blake Griffin, Andre Drummond, and okay, Draymond Green's a little different in terms of the way he's used. It's more modern, but definitely Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond, those guys ran the league a decade ago. And now Andre Drummond can't get on the court. It's mind-boggling. Like, he didn't know when he was training his entire life that the entire game would change while he was in the NBA. And here we are. So hopefully, we'll see some resolution for the players. Kyrie Irving and James Harden have an interesting dynamic, Terry. These are your two favorite guys, I know. But here's Kyrie with his indications about who should be handling the ball in Brooklyn.
Just wondering what you made of James Harden's passing performance tonight.
Just staying consistent. I feel like he's just been doing a great job of just managing the point guard role. We established that maybe 4 days ago now. I just looked at him and I said, you're the point guard, and I'm going to play shooting guard. And that was as simple as that. So he's been taking control of the responsibilities and doing an incredible job. And it just makes my job easier. Just go out and play free and just make plays. So it's a luxury. Just wanted to continue.
You know what, Pease? You're going to be the producer, and Eagle's going to host the show from now on.
No, nobody wants that.
I think I'd actually be a pretty good host though, but you'd be
You
a
would
terrible
be
producer.
Yeah. I think the trade value there is.
That's like it's not the downgrade at hosting the show. It would absolutely be the downgrade in production. It would be terrible. We the first ever show to appear in text. So
It'll just be ASCII penises everywhere.
Yeah.
the thing is like it's funny that I've watched a lot of Brooklyn Nets this season. There wasn't a debate. Harden took the ball when he got there. And like the hardest thing, it's often said like the hardest thing in situations like this is who gets a sacrifice, right? And when you look at the original Big Three with the Heat, LeBron's game is very different from these three guys, and Dwayne Wade's game is very different from these three guys. But still, someone had to sacrifice. And Chris Bosh said, like, he legitimately didn't know that he'd have to sacrifice, how much he'd have to sacrifice until he got there. And then he was like, oh no, wait a second. Yeah, I'm really good, but no, those guys are two of the best of all time. And Kyrie, I hope this is him realizing it and not being, weird because he can be, because Kyrie is absolutely the third best player in that threesome.
I agree. I think he's a little more well-rounded than James Harden is, but overall, I think that he's the third best player in the team. But I mean, listen, they're both such good athletes that they can each play that role. They can even rotate it mid-play. You know what I mean? Like it's just this. It's the way that it's the reason why they're going to have success in the playoffs is because you don't know who's going to do what. But to have Kyrie, who's normally a point guard, right? To him say, I'm the shooting guard and you're the point guard, to a guy who's only played shooting guard his entire career.
That whole concept doesn't exist anymore, right? Like LeBron James is the point guard half the time. Hell, I've seen Blake Griffin carry the ball up the court
Giannis
for Detroit at points.
Giannis is the point guard.
Oh, Giannis as well. It's not really like it's kind of positionless. Positions only kind of matter on defense in a way because you're choosing specific matchups. But like as for who plays point guard, who plays wing, like last year, the Hawks didn't have anyone in their roster over 6'9". So they didn't have a traditional power forward or center on their entire roster. So I mean, the whole concept is gone.
Can we just go back to the days where you have Shaq stand under the net and just slam the ball in? Like it's so easy. Just do that.
Most dominant player at one position in the history of sports.
That would have been Andre Drummond. I'm telling you, and now he can't find a team.
Yeah.
So Vincent Jackson passed away. He was wide receiver for the Buccaneers and the Chargers. When he was with the Chargers, Duke the Graphite, my brother and I, we actually got to see him play in person. And to hear him die at my age, at 38 years old, is shocking. Not a lot of details have come out. The one thing that has come out is he seemed to be suffering from severe depression, alcoholism, self-medication, and the worry is he might have had CTE. It's a difficult situation, and I'll let you say your piece on it, Terry.
So Vincent Jackson is that guy. When we had David Sanchez on a couple weeks ago, we spoke about the best of the rest receivers, and I'll throw Vincent Jackson in there because Vincent Jackson, during the time when they had LaDainian Tomlinson, Antonio Gates, Phillip Rivers, and him, it was hard to beat that team. You know what I mean? They were a very good team. That offense was flying, and Vincent Jackson was a key part of that. And going to the Bucks, I mean, he didn't have the same success, but he still was Vincent Jackson, and it's tough when you grow up. He's only 3 years older than I am, and I grew up watching this guy play football, and to hear these stories, it's not necessarily. It's sad because he's not the only one that's going to suffer from this, and this isn't the last time we're going to hear somebody doing something to themselves because of the damages they suffered while they played the sport.
And so, of course, Twitter's filled with everyone, all the people saying there's a war on football and CTE is bullshit and so on. But here's the thing: no one's saying, Vincent Jackson shouldn't have played football. All they're saying is we need to do some research to see how we can protect players to keep them from developing symptoms, and then if they do so, we need early on in their careers to start supporting them with mental health issues, give them help and the NFL has done a lot in terms of paying out settlements in CTE, but I think that the time has come that they need to invest their time, because whether it's CTE related or not, the guy is a former employee who suffered from depression, who suffered from alcoholism, and he legitimately, Terry, he was living in a hotel. that's not someone who feels like he's got a support system around him. You know what I mean? So hopefully we'll get some more information about his death. But what we learned so far is it's completely tragic, and we only hope that the league, and it's like we said last week about Wheeler and the situation with his girlfriend. We're not excusing the behavior because of bipolar disorder, but if bipolar disorder was part of this situation that created that situation for that woman, it's a complete disservice to not address these situations in advance.
The thing about CT, and people say, "Oh no, it doesn't exist," and things like that. They're dumb because there's so many people that have come out that's like, it's just like it's a known correlation. It's like when they look at this person and why he did this, and they look at his brain, wow, they have that CTE, and it just continues, and it just keeps on being like check mark, being proven right every single time. And I mean, I was listening to Matt Mitrione. He's a UFC, MMA fighter. He used to play in the NFL, and he said and they asked him, so would you let your kids play football? He said, I'm not letting my kid put on a football helmet till he's like 16 years old if he wants to play football, because his brain is so mush up until that point that I'm not going to let him do that. And I can see that point because he's like, I have headaches to this day just from football, not from fighting. He's like
Dominic Foxworth, who's a former NFL player. When he talks about playing the NFL, he almost sounds like back in the day what a miner would sound like. Like, no, my kids are never going to work the coal mines. I made the sacrifice for them so they don't have to. That's what he says about football. He's like, I made the sacrifice. I got hurt playing football, so my kids will never have to. Yeah. And that's the first generation of football players where we're seeing this to be the case. We have some other interesting topics to get to. I think we're going to get to them instead.
No, we can do it now. We can do it now. We can do it now? Okay. Yeah. So let's do it quickly, Terry. The Houston Texans falling apart completely. J.J. Watt released. Deshaun Watson makes you, like, at this point, you can't even wonder why he wants to trade at this point. Let's not forget that there was it 2 seasons removed or a season and a half removed from leading the Chiefs 24-3 in the first half in a playoff game.
It's crazy to me how Bill O'Brien ruined this fucking organization. He got rid of all their picks, and now J.J. Watt is he ruined the organization so bad that when he left, J.J. Watt asked for Bill O'Brien to leave, and now that he's gone, J.J. Watt still wants to leave. He's like, J.J. Watt is Houston. Like, there's nobody more Houston than J.J. Watt. A guy from Wisconsin, he is Houston. He's done everything for that city, and for him to want to leave is a bad sign. And Deshaun Watson seeing that and being like, listen, I mean, I want out too. This is what I need. I want to trade or whatever it is. And everybody's freaking out over, J.J. Watt wants to leave and they release him. How come they can't release Deshaun Watson? Because Deshaun Watson is 26 years fucking old or whatever he is. Yeah. And he has another 10 years left in his career, and his value is a lot higher than the 33-year-old J.J. Watt who is injured every single year. You know what I mean? Like, people are dumb. People are stupid.
Yeah, they're gonna get way more value for Deshaun Watson. And even like J.J. Watt was still like in the top, like this top quintile of linemen receiving double teams like this season. So given the fact that like he only had 5 sacks, he also took on an insane amount of double teams as he always has in his career. And look, he might not be the same player, but he can still, he's still a beneficial player. He's still a guy who's gonna be in the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? Like he's a very talented player who, again, was run out of town. Like, I'm looking at this and it just feels like Houston's the new Detroit. Detroit kept making guys retire early. These guys are trying to find a way to keep playing in the NFL, but it will not be with the Texans. And strange situation. We also see Nuke, DeAndre Hopkins, saying about Deshaun Watson wanting to leave town. He said that he'd like to reunite and finish what they started. So I know, Kyler Murray's – I don't even think it's a slight to Kyler Murray because he's a nice young player, but I mean, Deshaun Watson has just already taken those steps in his improvement and is ready to win now, where Kyler Murray seems to look very talented but might need a season or two before he gets to really where he's going to be.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sold on Kyler Murray. I think he had a rough year this year, but I'm sold on him. Like, I think he's going to be here for a long time. He's very good.
Russell Wilson also kind of making some noise, in the very Russell Wilson way, kind of saying that, he doesn't know what his future holds. And his wife was saying, like, she acted like she'd never been to Seattle. She's like, Seattle's got nice nature, I think. And
Yeah, she's like, I've been to lakes. So does she even live in Seattle? Like, I don't even know. Does she
I
live
don't
in
know.
LA, New York, and she flies in every weekend? Russell Wilson is by far the cheesiest guy in the history of sports. I
Well,
think.
I was writing the script, Terry, and I was like, J.J. Watt and Russell Wilson. Has there ever been a combination of two cheesier free agents ever?
They're the two guys that are like they always know when the camera's on. Always.
Yeah, they're the ones when you're watching porn and like they're just such bad actors that they keep looking at the camera and it takes you out of the moment and like I can't watch this. I'm done.
Yeah, exactly. Russell Wilson is cringy, like cringy beyond belief. Like all the
What do you
ads
mean?
he
He's
does.
Mr. Unlimited, right?
What is that?
So
What is that?
that's a thing he actually said 2 years ago on
He
Twitter.
said, "I'm unlimited."
He said, "I'm Mr. Unlimited." What does that mean?
What was the point of that?
Nobody knows to this day, except that his limits might be without limit.
He's like the cleanest guy ever. Okay, and then when he signed his big contract, he posted a picture on Instagram, like posing next to all his cars with like this expensive clothing. I'm like, this is not you.
It's
Like,
so weird.
it's not you. You are a Bible humping, clean cut guy who never broke the law. I mean, that's you. You never cheated on a test. You're the good guy. Don't act like you're this fringe bad guy that we don't really know. We can't figure out. We figured you out a long time ago, Russell Wilson.
you
You're the
think it's
guy
because-
that your sister shouldn't worry about.
Do you think it's because they're not letting him cook in Seattle, and now he put that trademark out, and he's like, "Fuck, I gotta go
That's
to
a good
another
point.
team."
That's a good point. That's a good
My
point.
wife actually saw him in a Bose commercial, and from the Bose commercial was like, I don't like this guy. He's the cheesiest guy ever. You know how hard it is to come across as cheesy when all you're doing is selling noise suppression? Like, all you gotta do is convey the idea that you can't hear the airplane. Like, that's all you gotta do. It's not complicated. It's an easy sales job.
Is
Just
he-
like the sales job we have next. If there's ever an interview to catch, it's to catch it with a guy of the caliber of John Liu, and he joins us next. And we're back. As promised, John Liu of TSN Montreal joins us. John, how's everything going?
It's going great, guys. Thanks for inviting me on. Really appreciate it. It's always fun to join a different podcast, and so I'm looking forward to having some fun.
Well, hopefully, we don't screw this up enough so you can come back eventually, and
Yeah, that's-
maybe we'll
Or
see
I
a
don't
little
screw
bit
it up.
more of the. Or you don't. No, you can't screw anything up, John. So that's the thing about you, John, is that as soon as I told a couple people you're coming on, everybody was like, "Oh, I love John Liu. I love John Liu." I don't think there's anybody that doesn't like you in the media, and that's why I'm super excited to have you, especially from
Well,
Montreal.
Thank you. That's very kind. But I'm sure
John
that
Liu,
there are
TSN
plenty who
Montreal.
don't agree with you. They just don't
I
see it in
doubt
my
it.
face.
Well, they're empirically wrong. That's simply what it is.
Yeah.
John, thanks for coming on. I wanted to mention, obviously, we are into Montreal Canadiens season. And I want to get your thoughts on the season so far and if the team is playing beyond what you expected at this point in the season.
I think what they've achieved so far has exceeded what I thought they would, simply because they had so many new additions in key spots in their roster. You know, top six, backup goalie, and now what we're seeing, Jake Allen is a 1A, a top 4D, and they only had a week-long training camp. And so I thought, well, it's probably going to take a little bit of time for all those pieces to fall into place. But then they had a terrific road trip to start the season. And yeah, they've hit a little bit of a rough patch, but that's to be expected when you see teams a second time around, or you get a team like Ottawa that's really has nothing to lose. And so what we saw over the last handful of games is a little bit of the ebb and flow that's to be expected, because certainly, 6-0-2 start, that's not going to be sustainable. Like, that just isn't realistic for any team, right?
Not
So
realistic.
have they exceeded expectations? In my view, at this stage of the season, they have, but they've shown a lot of, I think, positive signs to indicate that they can, once they hit their stride as a group, they can be a pretty consistent team and could go places this season.
So you mentioned the group is this, what kind of a group is this? Are we talking about like a group that you've seen in the past that has success, like in 2010? I mean, are you seeing anything like that when it comes to this team?
Very different. I mean, any team that I've covered, this is my 14th season, I think, 14th season covering this team, and I have to say that's, even though we in the media don't have access to the players in the dressing room, we haven't since last March. So you don't get to see the dynamics aside from what's happening on the ice. Just from what I've observed and what the players have been telling us, this seems to be a much more cohesive group. You know, that the culture, which is by and large, the tone is set by Shea Weber. They've never had, in all the years that I've covered the team, they haven't had a leader in that room like Shea Weber. And so I think you're seeing signs of, when they bring pieces together that are a more complete, deeper lineup, that are incorporating into the way they want to do things, and with the culture that's already intact, this team, if they go on to post a really a good record and go deep in the playoffs like they did in 2010 or 2014, then I'd have to say that there are elements of this group that make them, I think, more special, which is probably the best way to describe it, than previous incarnations in the past that have thrilled fans in the playoffs.
So we saw a trade, I think a couple of nights ago, when Alex Galchenyuk got moved, and he's now in his 7th team. And I saw the thing that you tend to see on Twitter where fans get excited about someone's misfortune after they leave the team. And I always find it to be a strange reaction because, you know, for me, if someone played in the city, just because it didn't work out, you kind of hope, you would hope that someone would be hoping for the best for them. And especially given that he had such personal demons he was dealing with while he was here. And definitely in Montreal, if you let this city, you know, swallow your demons, it will. So what was your reaction to seeing sort of people taking a victory lap on the latest Galchenyuk trade?
That's, you know what, that's really unfortunate, and it's uncalled for, because for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned, Alex Galchenyuk hasn't been able to get his career back on track. I mean, with the Canadiens, he still enjoyed his greatest success, but there were flaws in his game and continue to be flaws. Otherwise, he would have stuck with Pittsburgh or Minnesota, you know, any one of those teams or Arizona for that matter, right? And it's too bad because he has a ton of skill, and fundamentally he's a good kid. It's just that there are things that have gotten in the way of him being able to realize his potential, baggage, however you want to describe it. And I'm not going to go in depth with that, but the fact of the matter is, you know, to sort of dance on the guy's grave after he's left your city and your team, I don't quite understand that. I think what that speaks to is the difference between a hockey fan and a fan of a particular team, right?
Absolutely.
Because if you're a hockey fan, then it's like, well, you're going to like players from every team around the league. You know, you're going to be excited by their play. You're going to be rooting for their success, right? But if you're solely dedicated to your own team, well, then I suppose that explains why there would be some people who would be kicking dirt on his grave. But for what reason? For what legitimate reason? I don't know.
So I was a Galchenyuk fan when he got drafted. I bought his jersey. I still have it. I've tweeted at him a few times so he can sign it and send it back to me. Like, I'll pay for all the fees, like whatever. But he hasn't answered yet. So I'm still working on that. So I like him, and it's tough to see this because he scored 30 goals his rookie year. Like, he was on fire. Like, he's a good player, and you know, and from what I hear, John, you're not the only one that says that. He's a good kid too. So it's tough that hopefully that he figures it all out. I think we're going to see a second half to this kid's career, and he's going to figure it out at one point. There's going to be a team that gives him that chance, and he'll be able to he's going to end his career properly. I really feel that about Galchenyuk. I want to feel that too.
Yeah. Well, I think fundamentally, though, we all know that NHL coaches value players that are reliable, that are responsible at both ends of the ice. And that's always been something that's held Galchenyuk back. That his attention to detail in the defensive zone still needs work, right? And so until he figures that out, he's not going to be able to get on and stick with the team. And so we'll see what happens in Toronto. But it's a funny year for player movement, just because if teams are going to take a flyer on somebody, it really becomes a case of, if he can't contribute right away, then are they willing to take on that cap hit? Can they make space in the roster, because movement up and down with the taxi squad, that's a tactic that teams are going to be taking regularly. We've seen it plenty around the league. So it's a hard season for guys to try to get their careers back on track. And so it's really tough for Galchenyuk, because now what is this? This is his third team this season now, right?
This season,
yeah. So
I was actually
Carolina.
I was hopeful for him in Arizona. I'm like, oh, that's going to be great for him. You know, smaller market team, nice place to live, no real stress. Doesn't have to worry about the Montreal media. Like, we know what the Montreal media is here, and it's like, and how the fans, how passionate they are. And you mentioned it before, is that sometimes we become too close to the team, so we end up becoming fans of cloth, basically. You know what I mean? Like, it's material, it's fabric. It's not necessarily the reality of, like, how many players left Montreal and played for the Bruins after. You know, they weren't thinking, oh, I can't play for the Bruins, I used to play for Montreal, and we're supposed to be mad at them for joining the Bruins, but they're just looking out for themselves, right? And that's at the end of the day, I'm a season ticket holder. I'm gonna yell at Bruins players, you know, from the back row, you know, all the way up top. And it's like, we need to differentiate the how we treat the humans that actually put on the cloth that we love so much, even regardless of if they play with us or not. That's
and you hit it on the head. You know, that's so true, Terry. Is the bottom line is that these guys are humans. They're people just like us, except they just happen to be blessed with freakish talent, athletic ability that we can only dream of experiencing.
Well, now you're assuming that we don't have excellent athletic ability. Now, John, I'm offended here. I'm triggered.
Well, you'd be right, first of all.
Well,
and secondly, it's not Galchenyuk's fault that podcasting doesn't pay better than it does, Terry.
Yeah, exactly. Not his fault. We can't blame him.
Well, I'll tell you though, it's like, you know what, guys that are on the taxi squad, third pairing, fourth line, extra forwards, extra D, those guys can all ball.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
It's just to be able the talent level to be able to get to the league it's kind of unfathomable, and then to stay there, it's because of the competition and you know, salaries and, you know, guys coming up, young guys coming up all the time. It's a real grind. And so what comes along with that too, you know, the mental health issues that accompany what players experience. Yeah, you know what? The guys that are the absolute best, they make millions of dollars, and the guys that are on entry level or league minimum contracts, they're still earning way more than the average person will. But the fact of the matter is that there's only 700 odd jobs like that in the world, right? In the best league in the world. So they are the best. They are the best in the world. So the market bears it out that that's what they're going to get paid. And
I run kids tournaments in Montreal. I don't know if you heard the Montreal Meltdown. I work for the Montreal Meltdown. It's like this AAA tournament, and there's always kids that come from like different cities, and Boston Junior Bruins, they come. And I remember there was one team called the East Coast Selects, and there was 5 first-round picks on that team in the NHL. In that same tournament, Taylor Hall played against them, and they're 16 years old. This is right before they go to the O or the Q, or wherever they're going. And Taylor Hall scored like 8 goals a game, you know, until he got to the finals, and he played up against Matt Duchene. Matt Duchene was playing a year younger. And we're watching the game, and there's 16-year-old kids. I'm like, these 2 kids are going to be stars in the NHL one game, and at one point, and they both became that. You know what I mean? And you can tell right away who it is that's going to make it, a player like Alex Galchenyuk. But there's those other guys on the roster that are just equally as good, just maybe not as at scoring goals. And those are the guys that fill those third lines, like you're saying, John. And they are leaps and bounds ahead of the best player that I grew up playing with. You know what I mean? And I think we have to consider that when we say that they suck, because they don't actually suck.
No, and players, you know what? I mean, Phil Deneau is another good example, because he was a real big-time scorer in junior. But so far in his career, he's accepted a role that he's managed to grow into and exceed to a large degree, simply because of dedication and mental toughness, and the skill shining at the right moments and opportunities.
Yeah.
So I mean, guys they'll take whatever role that is necessary in order to stay in the league. Again, you know, getting there is hard. Staying there for the long term is harder. And so, yeah, I mean, you really can't just say that, oh, well, that guy's, you know, he's a depth player or whatever. It's like, because no, given the opportunity. Yeah. But again, players have ceilings too. That,
absolutely,
you know, their best isn't necessarily necessarily going to measure up to the absolute best, the upper echelon tiers of talent, in addition to the mental toughness and the will. Like, will is so important. The old cliche about skill without will doesn't get you anywhere. And it's true. Lots of talented guys make it to the league, but they might not stick it around because they just don't have the mental toughness to be able to be able to make to succeed in the long run.
There's a lot of kids from Montreal, like Jason Demers is a good example. I think he got cut from like his midget AA team, you know what I mean? And then he ends up playing 15 years in the NHL and making $6-7 million a year. And it's just crazy how timing is everything. David Perron is another example. And, he didn't really get drafted into the queue and he had to work his way up and ECHL to the AHL and finally on a team, Stanley Cup champ, it's just, you take your opportunities. And I think a lot of these guys lose the opportunity. They don't realize what the opportunity in front of them actually is. And it's unfortunate for guys like Galchenyuk. Full circle. Peace.
Yeah. John, last week there was, and I don't want to give it too much attention, but there was obviously a controversial article that came out. There was one thing that you had in your reply that I actually want to ask you about, in that you made quite a bold claim that you could school people on the ice right now. So I want to know what the John Luce scouting report looks like, right? Are you like a power forward, a top 4 D-man? Like, what are we looking for in this bag of tricks?
Well, I have to correct you, Alex, because I said I could school Réjean Tremblay on the ice.
Okay, there you go.
I didn't say people. I wouldn't go so far as to say that.
Fair point.
I played goal actually for a couple of years in high school hockey and like tier 2 in Winnipeg, and then in university played intramural, and then since then I've just played pickup or beer league hockey. And I can play a little bit of anything, defense, forward. I'll play center if I have to, although I don't like having to, come back deep into my zone all the time. So I like to make the stretch passes or, make the quick outs to the wingers and let them do the work. Passing is my main asset. I don't consider myself a great skater by any means. And shot is just... I don't know. If one of the guys on the Canadians were to see my shot, they would just instantly say muffin. So,
you might not be a great skater. You might not have the best shot, but you are known as the best dressed guy in hockey media. So my question to you is, which player is the best dressed that you've seen so far of all time?
Ooh, wow, that's a tough one.
Because we got Austin Matthews is up there, Hank Lundqvist. We got. Who else? I mean, there's a lot of them.
Subban was always ridiculous get-ups and everything.
Yeah, that too.
Sorry, who was that?
Subban.
PK for sure. PK likes to style, but I think I have to go with Hank, with the King. King Henrik is just because there's an elegance to him. Well, he's married to royalty, Swedish royalty. So come on.
He is Swedish royalty. I mean,
yeah, he's elevated himself to that status for sure. But no, Hank, he's not flashy. Like his style is not flashy, but he just wears suits extremely well. You can tell that he has an outstanding tailor because his fits are top notch. And there's a real elegance and opulence to his wardrobe. So I'd say that Hank is he'd be number 1 in my books. And it's just a shame that's he's gone through the health issues that he has. Let's hope that he recovers completely and is able to resume his career. But if not, you know what? If that's it for him, he had a tremendous career. I would say probably Hall of Fame credentials.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I agree.
John, sticking on this point with you being the best dresser in definitely Montreal media, if not beyond, you're looking for an overcoat. Do you go like a Chesterfield? Do you go like straight wool or like cashmere or a blend? Like because it's got to stand up to Canadian winters. What are you looking for?
For Montreal winters?
Yeah,
I wear down.
Okay. As many feathers as possible.
Yeah. What do they call it? 600 weight, fill weight, or whatever? No, but I mean for an overcoat, like when it's not bone-chillingly cold, I would say first choice would be cashmere or cashmere blend because it's warmest. Now it's way more expensive, but it's still going to keep you warmer. And where we live, that's a really important consideration.
It absolutely is. John, so early on during, when the world got shut down, and I want to say in the fall, you actually suffered from COVID, and you posted your what happened, and sort of like not only like your reaction to it, but sort of the things you were suffering. And it was kind of cool that you use your platform to show people, hey, look, this is a real thing. I'm not an elderly person, and it had an effect on me. So I just want to say, first of all, it's cool that you use your platform to do so. And now seeing where we're at, are you, given that you've suffered sort of the consequences of other people's actions, and that we still are dealing with this, how do you feel given that we're now in our second lockdown and we're now still experiencing curfew? What are your feelings like, given that you've dealt with it on a personal level?
Well, first of all, I think I feel like pretty much everybody is that I'm weary. That we're going through it again, that we've had to go into a curfew. But all along, my wife and I have been very diligent with listening to what public health experts and medical professionals have asked all of us to do, because the thing about this pandemic that's really been eye-opening for me, and in a lot of ways disappointing, is that a lot of people don't seem to grasp the concept that this is not about them. It's not about you, the individual. It's about you doing what's best for everybody around you. It's about taking care of other people. And so I think they're and I can't speak for every situation. You know what? A lot of people are losing their jobs. They're losing their businesses, their livelihoods. They're losing loved ones. There's a whole lot of pain, and I'm not insensitive to that by any means, because I've experienced it on different levels with friends and colleagues and family members. But the fact of the matter is, the people that openly and actively flout public health recommendations and rules, to me, that there's an egocentricity to that behavior that I find really disappointing. And I don't know how much of that is directly attributable to the pandemic lasting as long as it has, because you hear about these super spreader events, right? And how many of those are an asymptomatic person? How many of those are people that know that they're not well, and yet they still go and do something irresponsible? So, I mean, there's just far too many instances that just haven't been, that I don't think that they can be tracked or sourced. But all I can say is that this is the type of watershed moment in humanity's history that will, I think it'll define us for a real long time. You know, because until we get vaccines in wide enough distribution that you will have quote unquote herd immunity. I don't like that term, but really the only herd immunity you're going to get is through widespread vaccinations, because the alternative to that, certain jurisdictions that think that they could have done that by opening up the economy, is that you're just basically sentencing who knows how many people to death at the for the sake of herd immunity. So I really dislike that term. Yeah, once we are all safe and are capable of going back to some semblance of what our lives were before the pandemic, we're still going to have to be, I think, smart and responsible of how we interact and how we behave in public. Personally, I would like to see practices like hand sanitizing and social distancing within reason, you know, because I'm a hugger, you know, like I love to hug my family and my friends and colleagues, and so that's really a hard thing for a lot of people to accept. I really enjoy hanging out with my friends and colleagues, and so as much as I would like to see us all get back to being able to enjoy life in those simple ways, things that I guess we kind of took for granted before the pandemic, it's still not worth it to risk each other's safety. And so, yeah, kind of rambling, but you know, we could go on about this for hours.
For sure.
Oh, no, it's your message.
I had a weird conversation with someone recently where, you know, he was trying to downplay, you know, how bad is this really, kind of thing. And I said, well, we're losing a 9/11 amount of people every day. And he says, well, it's not the same thing because that's worldwide. I said, well, New York is part of the same world. So we also lost that many people worldwide that day. You know what I mean? Like,
that day, yeah.
You can't disassociate it just because it's not happening in your backyard. It's affecting everyone. And like you, John, I've been disappointed just with the science denial and people sort of just being selfish. Like it takes nothing just to consider other people ahead of yourself for a second. And that's why I was really, really appreciative of seeing that post pinned on your Twitter feed. I'm looking for, I know like we're all looking forward to different things opening up, and I want to go around the room, see what everyone looking forward to do when we return to quote unquote normal. I'm going to tip my bartender so much. I'm gonna go to that dirty drinking hole I go to. I'm gonna pound way too many beers. That Uber driver is gonna give me such a low rating on my way home. But I will tip both of them, both the bartender and my Uber driver, so generously. Terry, what are you looking forward to?
Well, I'm looking forward to going straight to the Carry hot dog, crushing 4 hot dogs and 1 other poutine, sitting at the bar with no mask and just enjoying life like I used to.
John, you're up next.
My wife and I don't have any go-to restaurants, but I really would like to just go in for a real nice meal with my wife and, have lots of wine and sit there for as long as we want and just enjoy the evening. Because it's just, again, it's just like the small pleasures like that's we're able to just enjoy the moment. Nothing outrageous or spectacular or anything, something simple. I'm fine with that. Although having said that, I really do miss the karaoke nights with my colleagues that we have at the end of every hockey season and at Christmas. Oh. We haven't gotten to do one since I think Christmas 2019, because last year
we need to do a hot sauce John Lou karaoke night. Now it's official.
Oh yeah, that'd be a good idea.
It's official. Eagle, what song you picking?
What was the one that Terry had to do the acapella of? And
Mariah Carey, All I Want for Christmas Is You.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, we're all doing a gigantic rendition of it. That's what's going on.
I'm down for that. I think John's down too.
I think I'm going to change my answer to getting a hug from John Lou, because it does sound delightful. John, thank you so much for the time that you've given us today. We really had a good time talking to you. Thanks for indulging us in the nonsense as we tend to do with our guests.
Hey, that was a lot of fun, and ask me anytime, guys. I really appreciated it, and it was really it was a pleasure meeting you.
Same here. Talk to you soon.
You bet.
And we're back.
Thank you, Eagle. I wasn't sure because you didn't count us down. That was an awesome interview with John Lou. The dude is just a sweetheart. Love talking to him.
Unbelievable, man. Oh, yeah. I didn't ask him. I wanted to ask him to give me a John Lou Hot Sauce Sports Montreal, like to close off. I wanted to clip it and put it in our new intro.
You fucked up, Terry. You fucked up. Now you're gonna have to message him on Twitter and ask him to record it.
No. Next time he comes on, we'll get him to do it.
You know what we should get? Actually, we should get him to sign your Galchenyuk jersey.
Oh, that'd be amazing. That'd be
awesome. Just sign John Lou.
That'd be amazing. I'll send him a tweet.
Eagles,
all right,
time.
Boys, let's get started in this rapid fire here. The first one is actually some positive news. We talked a couple weeks ago before the Super Bowl that the former Kansas City Chiefs assistant, Britt Reed, Andy Reid's son, was behind a wheel, potentially intoxicated. It's still kind of like up in the air, and that there was a young girl that was injured in a car crash. She recently just woke up from her coma. So really happy to hear the kind of the positive, as weird as that sounds, come out from that whole situation.
Positive that a little girl didn't die because of the negligence of an idiot.
Correct.
Yeah, it's the Reed family's gone through a lot of stuff. The other Britt Reed's brother and Andy Reid's other son committed suicide a couple years ago. Obviously we don't know how that affects them, but I don't mean that to say that they're the victims. Britt Reed was absolutely not the victim here. If any criminal charges are brought to him, he absolutely deserves them. It's at the very least reckless endangerment. And I'm just happy that the story, I wouldn't say a happy ending, it didn't have a tragic ending.
Absolutely.
All right, next, Margaritaville. So on Colin Cowherd's podcast called The Volume, Joe Buck actually admits that him and Troy Aikman consumed a little bit more than spring water at times. So
I told Troy this. I said, every broadcast partnership has a different feel. Regardless of who is the analyst, Al Michaels always feels like he's leading the broadcast. Tony Romo is the energizer to Nance. You and Aikman are different. You sound like college buddies. You sound like exactly you both have a small glass of bourbon that you sip occasionally during the game, And it's an incredibly comfortable experience for me as a consumer. And I'll ask you what I asked Troy. How long did it take to curate that?
It took longer for Troy and me to get there than it took Smoltz and I to get there. And I'll say this. We have had that glass of bourbon in the booth, although it's not bourbon. It's tequila, splash of Grand Marnier, and grapefruit juice. I went through a couple of years where in the first inning of every postseason baseball game, I had the runner go get the biggest beer that the stadium sold. And I had it sitting there, and I would sip it from time to time to remind myself to relax and have fun. I'm just doing a game. And I brought that over to football, but because Troy is a man of finer tastes, beer somehow became tequila, Grand Marnier, and grapefruit juice. We haven't done it in a long time now, but it was good for a stretch. And I feel like it's a good mental trigger to just chill and remind yourself that you're not refueling an F-16 in mid-flight. You're doing a sporting event, and if you treat it like anything other than that, you're doing yourself a disservice.
I mean, I think I don't know if it's you, Pease, but are you kind of like off the Joe Buck bandwagon kind of thing? Like you're not a fan of him?
I mean, as a broadcaster, to me, he's just a guy. He's fine. Most of these guys are just, interchangeable. That's why I always say, like, when they screw up, and by screw up, I don't mean have a glass of bourbon in the booth. I couldn't care less. You don't drive a forklift. It's fine. When it's like that dude from Cincinnati Reds where you say something awful and hurtful, no, you don't deserve to keep your job because there's not that many of them. And you're absolutely replaceable. But Joe Buck's personality, I've heard him tell stories about having like pot brownies before. I've heard him tell stories about drinking. His character in Brockmire is hilarious. Now we're
he's a guy's guy.
Brockmire in real life. It's kind of cool. I just, like I said, it's not hurting anybody. They're having a good time. And again, guys, it's just sports. They play games for a living.
But people are mad that they took a sip of bourbon or tequila while they're...
It's fake Twitter rage, dude. People are fake mad all over Twitter.
Oh, my God, man. People get over it.
All right, next. Island of Shame. Arthur Staple of The Athletics said he's going to have to check in on some Sabre fans after a terrible loss to the Islanders. He was showing some of the responses of people on Twitter. One of them said, I bought a cardboard cutout to honor my aunt who passed away. Can I go pick it up so she doesn't have to watch this anymore?
That's unbelievable. That's the best tweet ever. Put that up in the bracket for the Sweet 16 for the best tweets of all time. Like that's unbelievable.
I was like, man, we've already gotten to that point where we're COVID joking. It's cool. I saw that.
How Buffalo are you? I'm so Buffalo. I tweeted at the announcer and I said, can I take my dead aunt's picture away from watching the games live?
I couldn't believe real people are actually buying those cutouts because, like, I just always saw that as like owners finding any way to get money out of fans in any way possible. Like, we'll put up a cardboard picture watching the game. You can watch the game at home without the cardboard cutout also watching it. Like, it doesn't prevent you from getting your game pass.
Yeah, but you can't watch you watching the game live.
Oh, so it's like voyeuristic, like soft masturbatory kind of thing.
Almost, yeah, almost.
I get it. Now it all makes sense to me. Spend your money. You live
all right. Next. Snowflake White. Many of you may know this. Gina Carano was released from her job on The Mandalorian at Disney. Dana White had some words to say the least, most, whatever.
Listen, we make mistakes. We all make mistakes, for everybody to go in on her. I love how Ariel Hawani made it all about him. It was all about him. Such a douche.
Such a douche.
There was we could have found there was a better audio. I saw this one before, but so Ariel, listen, I mean, Ariel's a lot of things. The one thing he is not a douche. And if Dana White really watched that video it's an 8-minute long video, and everyone, he didn't want to talk about it at all. Everyone didn't want to say anything, and everybody was like, "You got to say something." He kept on getting tagged, so he's like, and even at the beginning of the video, he said, listen, I didn't want to say anything, but there's a lot of attention. People were asking me to say something. Let me say this. And he didn't say anything bad. All he said was it was a little insensitive, and this is what it is. He never made it about himself. He wasn't crying and all that stuff. Like, listen, Ariel Helwani is a very proud person. I mean, he's always the first to talk about, to call out anybody that's anti-Semitic and things like that. And from Montreal, a Jewish kid from Montreal, we kind of support him here. But Dana White and him have had their beef for a long time. And I think that anything Ariel Helwani is going to do, Dana White's going to hate. And that's pretty much what you saw there.
So there's a couple of things. One is, of course, look, the thing I don't like about this kind of thing is, yes, Gina Carano said something. It's not something that particularly offended me. Although, let's remember, she worked for a corporation. That corporation was Disney. I'm pretty sure they have, sort of protocols in effect saying, hey, listen, you screwed up X amount of times. You screwed up again. All you got to do is apologize. Oh, you don't want to apologize? Sorry, you violated this. You knew what you were doing when you didn't want to apologize. You knew what you were doing when you tweeted this. You've been warned. It happens. Like, I don't have strong feelings one way or another. Like, I don't
the same way.
Like if one of my grocers at IGA gets fired, that doesn't really affect me either. Like, for all I know, IGA didn't have a reason. They may have had a reason. I don't know. I'm not in the room. The other thing is, I'm also not going to tell someone what is and what isn't insensitive. If Ariel Helwani is bothered by this as a Jewish person, that's his right. It's his right to feel bothered by it or not feel bothered by it. And for Dana White, to me, I said it last week, Terry, I'm starting to get a little, like, at one point he was cool and edgy. Now he's just becoming a grumpy old man who's like, he's not even a grumpy old man. He's your aunt who's still trying to act cool, but now, like, she hasn't realized she's the old one in the room.
Yeah, so I think Dana's got to the point where he has all fuck you money, so he doesn't have to kiss anyone's ass anymore, and his true colors are coming out. Like, he's just a guy who's a shrewd businessman. He's the best promoter in the history of combat sports, and
I won't take any of that away from him.
Oh yeah, for sure. And he's that guy. And if you slight him in the least bit, and Ariel Helwani did slight him, you're done. You're cooked, and that's
basically. And in some cases, slighting him is just being a journalist and doing your job.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he went again. Ariel Helwani knew what he was doing when he announced the fight before the UFC announced it with the Brock Lesnar event, and Dana White got pissed because they pumped. Only reason why Dana White got pissed is because they pumped so much money into marketing the announcement and all that stuff for Brock Lesnar to come back, and Ariel Helwani just ruined it with one tweet. So it's like, yeah. It's just, it is what it is. And I get both sides of it, but I'm more on the Ariel side.
Just like Ariel Helwani has to face the consequences of those actions, Gina Carano had to face the consequences of her actions. It's as simple as that.
Absolutely.
Next, do the hustle. Bradley Beal makes a great play by making no play after he tries to fetch a ball who goes under the bleachers, essentially, when playing for the Washington Wizards.
How old school is this, though? This reminds me of like gym class, and the ball goes like under the auditorium, under the stage, and you gotta like crawl under there and get it. I love this, man. Bradley Beal, man. What a guy. What a guy. Him and John Lou.
Put like this. Can we have somebody else but Bradley Beal?
1A, 1B.
Go get that ball.
So people talk about James Harden made a racket to get traded. AD made a racket to get traded. This is what happens when you don't. This is what happens when you work with a team. They make you go fetch the ball under the bleachers. They literally make you jump through hoops and under bleachers to go get the ball. This is why players make a beef when they want to get traded.
And last topic for today, silver and stripes. After Lorraine Groves, who's the daughter of the silversmith who crafted the original Lombardi trophy, she came out and said she was appalled and demanded an apology from Tom Brady for tossing the trophy from one boat to another. The Buccaneers GM put out a reply with a GIF suggesting that she, quote, lighten up, Francis.
Francis? A GIF? It's a GIF.
GIF.
The creator of it, unfortunately, says GIF, but I'm with you, Terry. GIF sounds stupid.
So I sent that. So when this happened, I sent out a tweet. And I'm like, I got into a fender bender once. The daughter of the guy that assembled the bumper demanded an apology. I told her to go fuck herself. So that's the thing. Is like, I don't know who this person thinks she is. You didn't. First of all, you didn't make the Super Bowl. It wasn't even you.
This also wasn't the trophy that her father made.
Oh, there you go. Even worse. I didn't even know that part.
And I'm sure they don't let teams party with the one and only trophy. And also, like, does this chick not have the internet? Because, like, Gronk dented it by bunting a year ago with Julian Edelman. Guys have like done lines off it, I'm sure. The Stanley Cup is
100%.
famous for how many people's semen and how many people have drank alcohol out of that cup. Everyone basically gets sick immediately after. Guys, this is what teams do. This is what happens. It's the epicenter of joy. You made something that makes people so joyous they get hammered on a boat and throw shit at each other.
And that's going to be it for this show, boys.
Good stuff. Love it.
That was awesome. John Lou was great. I had a great time talking to him. If you want to get that interview, you can get it as part of this show. If you want to catch all of our interviews, we do cut them up. We put them on social media. For that, of course, you need to follow us on our social media platforms. Remember to like us. Do subscribe to the show. That way, the new show comes out, you'll be the first to be notified. And just like when you're me, just missing out on a new pair of Jordans, you don't want to be that. You want to be the one who gets in on that. The way you do that is you hit subscribe. Terry, thank you for all the work you've done today. Eagle, thank you for all the production work and for asking the most difficult questions in the John Lou interview. Totally appreciate you, man. Thank you all for those who have registered and have liked our stuff. We appreciate you every day. And most importantly, thank you all for letting me be myself.
You've been listening to Hot Sauce Sports.
I weirdly said register and subscribe. I'm not registering for anything.
I mean, what if they could register? Should we have a registry? People can send us stuff?
Yeah. You can register to all our social media.